Decentralization is paramount to the ethos of the founding fathers and the establishing principles of the United States. Conservatives inherently value decentralization, even if that is not a term they are generally familiar with. Conservatives' default perspective is that governing should occur at the smallest level, starting with the individual. This idea of don't criticize the world until you have your own house in order. Nobody on earth is more suited to make decisions for you than yourself. The next level up is the family. Conservative values can often be reworded as family values. Families can be viewed as a microscopic governing body. A strong male figure, typically the father or grandfather, serves as the leader. The values of the father are used to guide the family, determining where and how they allocate their time and resources. Moreover, the family unit provides support for its members who are unable to care for themselves. The next level beyond family is the local community/church. Conservatives are much more keen on a local church providing hot meals for the area's homeless, rather than adopting state-sponsored welfare programs. This is the power of decentralized systems. This is sovereignty. We can't really have sovereignty at the individual level without decentralization, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And by extension, if you have the extent you have government centralization, you have loss of sovereignty at the individual level. Does this land with a lot of conservatives that you talk to? Or do you find there to be maybe a jargon barrier here with the word decentralization that they just haven't realized that it is part of the conservative value system?
Yeah, there definitely is a jargon barrier, and not to blame everything on shitcoins and shitcoiners, but I don't think they've helped our case with that. Decentralization is one of those words that's really just become a buzzword and meaningless. I think it was Zuby who coined the term like word inflation. When a word gets used too much, it just loses all of its value. Like racism, decentralization, blockchain, like all these words have just totally lost their meaning. I think, unfortunately, decentralization is one of them. And so perhaps framing it as individual sovereignty or just sovereignty might be a more apt approach, because what is decentralization? It's just power that is not in one person or entity, but it's scattered amongst various entities. So as an individual, I can move much more quickly and make decisions much more effectively than if there were 100 individuals and we all had to agree on a certain thing, right? This is one of the awesome things about Bitcoin, is because it's a volatile asset in terms of USD, and it's a new technology and people aren't exactly sure how it works. Large institutions that are centralized, they have a harder time adopting it because you have to get more people on board within the institution, within the organization. But individuals, sort of decentralized people can act quickly, right? Because for Mitchell Hodl to adopt a Bitcoin standard on his personal savings, I'm the only person I have to convince, right? Mm-hmm. This is one of MicroStrategy Michael Saylor's biggest assets, right? Is that Saylor always remained like a majority shareholder and decision maker in MicroStrategy. Mm. So once he was orange pilled, he could act, right? He didn't have to worry about necessarily getting a bunch of other people on board. And so Bitcoin is beneficial for individuals in this way. And yeah, I think framing decentralization as sovereignty may be the way to go. It's just one of those words that's kind of lost meaning.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because that is the distinguishing feature between Bitcoin and shitcoin, basically, is decentralization. But every crypto project labels themselves more or less as decentralized X, decentralized Y.
Yeah.
And so that word inflation has, it's happened already, right?
Yeah. They've co-opted it to brand their entire community, right? They call themselves the DeFi world, right? Decentralized finance. When it's, Bitcoin maxis, we tend to call it CeFi because it's just centralized finance. It's not actually decentralized. Like decentralization, it exists on a spectrum. And this is getting more into like why Bitcoin is different from crypto and shitcoins, which I get into at the end of the book. But if decentralization is a spectrum, you have Bitcoin over here on one end, fully decentralized, nobody's in control. It's like completely decentralized computer network. On the other end, you have Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud, fully centralized. There's benefits to that, right? It's quick. They can do things. They can upgrade, right? Bitcoin has the benefits of decentralization and that it's hard to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every other crypto is somewhere in the middle, right? They're like quasi-centralized, decentralized, but there's no benefit there, right? There's no competitive moat. There's no, Solana is less decentralized than Ethereum, but they're faster and quote unquote, cheaper, whatever. And so it just moves further along the spectrum, and ultimately you just end up at full centralization or full decentralization. Like there's nothing in the middle worth having.
Yeah, and one of the main benefits of decentralization is censorship resistance. So I've often thought that people tend to want the best. If you want actual censorship resistance, you're going to opt for the highest security option available, right?
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a winner take all domain, as is money. So it's like when you put that over the decentralization nuance, you start to become more of a Bitcoin maximalist, I think, in your thinking.
Yeah, that's a great point. Why would you want the thing that is like not the most censorship resistant? Like you want the thing that is absolutely more censorship resistant than anything else.
If it actually matters, right? If it's actually mission critical and you face the risk of censorship or attack, whatever you want to call it, well, then of course, why wouldn't you opt for the number one most secure mode of censorship resistance? Like it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to go for the second, third, fourth best.
Yeah, I guess one could say there is no second best.
Yeah, there is no second best. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.